Guilt by Association came out last year. That was my first novel. How did I wind up writing fiction? Well, when Guilt by Association first came out last year, Publishers Weekly said, Clark turns to fiction to control the outcome. Like that's a bad thing. and that might be part of the motivation, to be honest with you, but there was more to it than that. Of course there is. When I was a kid, I always wanted to write fiction, and I always loved murder mysteries. I loved Nancy Drew. By the way, she just turned 80. I know. A little depressing, but a little cool. She's still crushing crime. And even as I grew up, I continued to read murder mysteries. And then even when I was a prosecutor, I'd go home at night and read murder mysteries. How sick is that, you know? I'm prosecuting all day. I go home and read about it at night. So it was always something that I wanted to do. But I never had the confidence to actually tackle writing a book because it's hard. It's really, really hard. So what happened was, after the trial, I wound up doing a lot of different things. Maybe some of you saw I was correspondent for Entertainment Tonight. I hosted for Rivera Live on CNBC and MSNBC and on NBC, and then did a whole bunch of stuff, and then wound up, oddly enough, writing on a television show that was called For the People. It was on Lifetime, and it was based on the LA DA's office. And they thought I might know something about that. So I was going to just be a consultant and just tell stories and weave stories and help them put stories together for it. It was a drama series. But the creator said, no, I think you should write. I really think you have a voice and I think you can write. And my response to that was no. And she said, okay, just write this scene. You don't have to write the whole, just write a scene. It's a scene between a prosecutor and a judge. Figured I could probably pull that off. So I wrote one scene. I said, this is fun. So then she gave me another scene, yet another scene. And then, I wound up writing scripts with her. And after that, we wound up creating a few pilots together. Sold a pilot to FX, another one to NBC, one to VH1. We now have a pilot sitting with Lifetime, another legal drama. After that, by that time, I was then handling criminal appeals. It's kind of different than trial work because the Court of Appeal appoints you to handle the case, and then you just read it. You stay home. You read the trial transcripts. You look and see if there's errors. If there are errors, you write a brief and you tell the court where you think there's a problem. And if there aren't, you tell the court that too. So it's very different than trial work. So it's a hard job. It's about a 100-hour-a-week job. But the good news about it is that you get to write your own hours. So I thought, okay, if I'm ever going to tackle this whole book thing, it's going to be now or never, because I can stay home. So I had the luxury of writing between like 2 and 5 in the morning. And it took a long time. I went through one version after another of the book until I got to something that was readable, and I had one agent tell me, no, I don't get it. And then I sent it out to another agent. She said, okay, I'll work with you. And I took notes from her people for about a year, at the end of which she said, not quite there, but we really love your characters. We really like your voice. Why don't you work with an editor and come back? But by that time, I had a lot of experience writing, getting notes and listening and thinking about it. And I thought, I know what's wrong. This story doesn't work. I'm going to throw out the story. And they went, no, don't throw it out. No, don't start all over. And I said, no, I really know. I know what I have to do. So I didn't hire an editor. I sat down by myself and said, I'm going to take another crack at this. And that was such hard work after all the hard work I'd put in that I wasn't entirely sure if this book didn't sell, if I could keep doing it, because I literally wasn't sleeping. I don't know very many people who have it any differently. The first time you write a book, most authors are working a full-time job because you got to still support yourself and feed the kids. And so did I. So it was very hard work getting that book out, but at the end of about 9-10 months, I got to a place where I thought, this is as good as I know how to make it, and sent it out and got lucky. That was Guilt by Association. And Little Brown bought it. And then came the sequel, which is what I wanted to do. Let me back up and just say, before I started writing, I thought, what kind of book do I want to write? I know murder mystery, fiction, crime fiction. That's my thing. That's what I love. But do you want to write standalones, where each time it's different characters and different stories, or do you want to write a series? I thought, I really like the idea of a series. I like the idea of recurring characters who are like a family that you get to know and that you come back and you revisit with each book and you see how they develop. At the same time, I didn't want readers to feel as though if they step in at book 2, they've lost a lot and they don't know what's going on. And so it becomes a little tricky. So what I did, Guilt by Association introduced the characters. The characters are Rachel Knight. She's a special trials lawyer. What does that mean? In Los Angeles County, which, by the way, is the largest prosecutorial agency in the world, there are over 1,000 lawyers, probably by now 1,500 lawyers. And we have so much crime that we have specialized units to deal with specific kinds of crime so that the DAs can specialize. So there's a unit for hardcore gangs, and that's self-explanatory, a unit for family violence, a unit for sex crimes. You get the picture. In that 1,000 lawyers, there was one very small unit made up of old or warhorse guys who had a lot of experience, and it was called Special Trials. They'd never had a woman in the unit. I was the first woman in the unit, so it was 4 older guys and me, and they thought I was cute, and they called me a lawyerette, which I loved. But, I thought, I'll just show them. Just go in there and show them. And sure enough, to their credit, they saw me working hard and in there trying the cases, and then it was cool. I was one of the guys. And the police, too. I thought I'd have my hardest time convincing those homicide detectives that I knew what I was doing. But after the first after the first case I took to trial with one of them, he talked to all his buddies and said, no, she really fights. She's really good. So they, it was fine. So I wound up working in that unit. Now, that unit is different than all the others in the DA's office because we get our cases the day the body is found. Because they're complex, only the most complex and high-profile cases go to special trials. So that's all the cases you've heard of in the news, that's the unit that prosecutes them. Menendez, what's another one? Phil Spector. Does that ring a bell? The music producer? Okay, so there you go. That's all special trials. And we work up the case with the detectives. We go out the street and, and talk to the witnesses. We tell them, we suggest what they might want to do in terms of investigation, because I can't really tell them what to do, because if I did, they'd tell me what to do. But we do have some input and work up the case. So sometimes it would not unusual to have more time spent in the investigation than the actual trial. But that's unique. Most prosecutors don't do that. I thought, okay, I'd like to show that. I mean, that was what I did for the last 10 years in the office. And it gives you a chance to to do a story involving investigation as well as trial. One thing I think people don't know is that homicide detectives are some of the funniest people I've ever known. And I know that seems counterintuitive, but when you think about it, it actually makes sense. They have a very grim job. So do the special trials prosecutors, very grim. And you're dealing with murder and mayhem all the time. And every single case you're handling, even if you win, it's a tragedy. This is a terrible thing. People have gone through a terrible time. And so, even if you're helping them, it's very sad. You have to counteract it, or else you go crazy. So they have a really macabre sense of humor. For example, the sheriff's detectives have a saying that says, "Our day begins when your day ends." That's nice. I know, right? Sweet. Yeah, like I said, it's a sick sense of humor. So reporters have told me they have one too. Anyway, I'm not sure. I haven't checked them out, so I can't tell you if that's true. So Rachel Knight is somebody who, and I think it's always important to do this, your characters have to have a backstory. You have to know who they are. What was their childhood like? What were their parents like? How were they raised? Where were they raised? And what happened to them? Because what happened to you as a child or as you were growing up affects who you are today. All of us. Affects our decisions and a lot of the ways we relate to others. That was true of Rachel also. She went through a terrible trauma as a child, really terrible trauma. As a result of that trauma, she plays cards very close to the vest personally. So you learn about her in increments, the way you peel away the layers of an onion, because she's not the type of person, the one kind you meet at the party who starts talking and doesn't stop. until you hear your mother calling, you know, the kind who says, and I was in junior high when he didn't call, and then when I got into ninth grade, I had a teacher who hated my penmanship, and then, you know, that type. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Okay, Rachel's the opposite of that. She never does that. You have to pry even, you know, name, rank, and serial number out of her with the crowbar because she doesn't like to talk about her past. But of course we're going to, and it does come out. And a little bit in each book, you'll see a little bit more and more of Rachel and how her childhood trauma affects the way she deals with her friends, her lovers, her job. So there you have it.